Hey, we're moving on, and thank you for uh, coming to APAW's Plain Jane Reality. This is segment 5 of 6 of How We Roll, and subtitled or titled Personal and Global, or It's Not All Black and White. Part of my identity is tied up with my own set of filters, although I have worked hard to understand them and to mitigate what I can. Being of Mediterranean descent, at least most recently, has had its benefits. Having a heritage, being from a part of the planet having a rather benign climate, not too hot, not too cold, gives me a centrist outlook. For most of my earlier life, I took some undue pride in my origins. I'm still proud. Although I also suffered from the shame of being a WAP, a low-class Italian of immigrant origins. It was not as bad as being black, but I got a little whiff, a little taste. I don't compare my experience. So, anyhow, my father did give me a set of The Story of Civilization by Will and Ariel Durant, a most excellent and scholarly account of the various ages of man, but of course mostly Western-oriented. I have to say I have never read it in its entirety. It's 7 pretty heavy-duty volumes, but I have used it to dip into various eras. May I comment on using the word oriented? I could also comment on the word italic or laconic, for I fully realize that language is highly subjective and capable of slanting itself in any number of directions. My father's hope was that I might rise up to reach a higher level than his or his father's humble origins, coming from a rural background of southern Italian Calabria. But we all rest on the shoulders of our ancestors. I have never wanted to submit my DNA to a commercial company because of my fear of Big Brother, Big Data, and all our other overlords. But bear with me a little more. We learned in high school, mine was in an affluent and white-bread community, decidedly upper middle class, the only black person being the exchange student from Uganda, about René Descartes. I hope that's the right way to say it. The French philosopher, and his famous, in the West, philosophical statement which supposedly defined a great deal of Western thought. He stated, "I think, therefore I am." In the Latin, cogito ergo sum. This always struck me as rather pompous and a little, or a lot, arrogant. As I tried to discern the soul of Western civilization over the years, imagine my surprise recently in reading about a different construct of thought arising out of Africa. It seems an African word, Ubuntu, derived out of the Xhosa and Bantu languages, expresses a similar but profoundly different idea. Ubuntu loosely means or contains an I as well as a we, signifying I am because we are. To think that thinking alone defines who we are, how we roll, is quite a bit different than including the context of an entire group of other humans as giving meaning to the individual, and not that the individual is less of an individual. Suddenly I wanted to call Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., otherwise known as Skip, and tell him I had discovered an essential fact in understanding part of the black and white racial divide, and why African and European culture seem to bump heads. They both have a whole different orientation. That's why. And there's a lot of other differences. God bless the differences. Ironies abound. All of us have filters which cripple our understanding. We are humans, but that includes a lot of baggage. There are only imperfect humans on the planet at this time, unless you include a greater unity of spirit revealing itself in the entire life of the planet as a whole. Whether the planet is one entity, but we're not going there right now. That represents to me a kind of perfection, although we do not have an exact word for it. We can gesture and point, but we remain dumbfounded, trying to define the miracle we are in. And we seem to be caught up in the endless tribal warfare, ironic because we essentially belong to only one tribe, the tribe of the clueless human species. Does it not seem bizarre that physical loving is a taboo subject, but depictions of violence and blood fill our screens? My own notion of man as a 2-year-old is not totally unfounded then. As I tried to deliver this barrage of words, this birth of some of the concepts and motivations that may not only drive me, but also may have some resonance in our larger network, I am by turns too personal and too Unabomber. I know long manifestos do not win the war, but I am driven to get a whole vision out in one fell swoop, a kind of unified field theory of human misery, as it seems the world needs some remedy, and we all have some splaining to do. Although Ricardo never said that to Lucy, according to the internet. Thank you for viewing part 5 of 6 of How We Roll, and thank you for the use of the hall.